Hello. Welcome to Story Lounge, a story time for adults. You are invited to sit back and get comfy and grab yourself a crocheted blanket. I've got mine just here, so matching. If you don't have a crochet blanket, look, I would encourage you to grab a cat, a puppy, a house plant, whatever you need, whatever makes you happy and comfortable. My name is Natalie and I'm a librarian at the City of Melbourne Libraries, and joining me is my colleague Lisa. Hi Lisa.
Hi Natalie, I'm Lisa and I work with Natalie at City of Melbourne Libraries.
Now Lisa has been running a Story Lounge program in our libraries for many, many years, and here we are in our home libraries bringing it to you. Lisa created the Story Lounge program and is a master storyteller, so you are in for a real treat today. During this episode of Story Lounge, Lisa will be reading a very short poem. No, I got that wrong. I'll try that again. Lisa will be reading a very short story and a poem. So feel free as you listen to dream and drift wherever these pieces take you. After both of the readings, Lisa and I are going to have a bit of a chat, and we really encourage you, if you're watching this program live, to jump into the comments, share your thoughts, your insights, and ask us any questions that you have, and we will read out and respond to as many questions and comments as we can towards the end of the program. We're also excited to be able to do this program live and learning as we go. So if you find that the technology fails, by all means, have a little faith. Don't leave us. And we will do our best to navigate this new world in which we make our library programs. So, Lisa, would you like to take it away with today's first reading?
Yeah, so I've chosen two pieces for today's reading. The first one is by Alice Bishop from her remarkable debut story collection, A Constant Hum, which is a collection of stories written about the aftermath of the Black Saturday bushfires. The second piece is a poem from a very moving poetry collection by Cate Kennedy. The collection's called The Taste of River Water. Both these writers are Victorian writers, so it's not so surprising that one's written about bushfires and the other has written about drought. And you could say that the theme of today's readings is disaster, but equally you could say it's about resilience. And I like to think of these pieces reminding me about the importance of art, stories and images in nurturing that resilience, particularly in tougher times. So I'm going to start with the Alice Bishop short story. As Natalie mentioned, it's very, very short. It's called Maps. It comes about midway through the collection. So to give a little bit of context, we've already read short stories about the fires and the aftermath of the fires. And so we're already sort of sitting with that sort of knowledge swirling around. And then we get to this little gem of a short piece, which I'll read you now, called Maps. Maps. It takes the satellites a while to catch up. Our place is still there on Google Earth, months after. Every morning I reload the page, and there's something calming when I still see no blackened scar through green.
Oh, Lisa.
I know that piece makes you cry, Natalie, because you actually first read that piece to me at an event we ran called Flavors of Summer, which was all about ice creams and reading. It was supposed to be a very happy event, and you read it and got quite emotional, but I was actually really impressed by that emotion, and it's really stayed with me, and it made me want to read this collection, and that piece has really stayed with me as well.
Yeah, look, Alice Bishop is a genius. I can say that. And that's a short story collection with close to 300 pages, and yet one story in a few sentences knocked me over and has stayed with me. It's such a close close feeling. It reminded me of so many different things, but yes, you're right to point out that I read it aloud at a library event and I cried in front of all the people that were there at an event that was a joyous occasion, celebrating the summer reading we could do to escape and relax and eat some ice cream. But I think what struck me most about that story, and what strikes me every time I hear it, every time I read it out loud, is the feeling, the sense of urgency, and the kind of the rawness of waiting. So, you know, in my life, I have waited by the phone for it to ring, desperately checking the dial tone to find out if it's still working. I remember getting my first email account and sending an email and waiting, just sitting there looking at my inbox going, now what happens? What's email? How does that work? And, you know, in a more kind of recent time, looking at my phone with the 3 dots, I know someone's replying to me, but where is it? I'm just sitting here waiting for it. And so that sense of waiting for something to refresh, but the fact that it's to see your house disappear after losing it entirely from a bushfire is a completely new way of looking at that, you know, that technology refresh that we do many times a day in many different contexts. But to do it and wait for a visual sense of loss, it hit me in the guts and I can't let it go. And it's such a, like, it's a real tactile, you know, and it's 3 sentences out of an entire short story collection. That, my friend, is why Alice Bishop is a genius.
Natalie, I think you've hit on something really important that really good writers do, in that she's taken a detail that we can all relate to, so it's universal in that way, but she's made it so specific to her situation that even people who haven't been through that exact situation can immediately identify with it. We're made really present in that moment. I just think there's something really beautiful in her using that image to calm herself as the narrator in the story, but also as the writer telling that story about watching that image. There's sort of a bearing witness to these little moments, and this is a moment after the disaster. So for me, it gives me a little bit of hope that there is an after the disaster, and that there are these sort of quiet, reflective moments that art can capture. And I don't know, there's just something about going through them with art that makes them feel a little bit better. And you'll see that, I think, even more with the Cate Kennedy poem. She makes that connection really explicit. So maybe we'll chat a bit more about that once I've read the poem as well.
Well, I'm ready. I can handle it. If you want to read at me, please.
Okay. So this is a poem called 8x10 Colour Enlargements, $16.50, from the Cate Kennedy Taste of River Water collection. Let me lay it out for you. A rural photography competition in a local town hall. And the woman next to me, sitting with her husband and 2 children, had travelled 3 hours to be there. Her kids were quiet, with the soft, cowed politeness of remote life. A farm up in the lonely, dry stretch of the Western Districts. Her husband's boots smelling of polish. And he, preoccupied as the judge made her speech, thinking no doubt of the work waiting for him back at home and the cost of filling up the car to return. He looked at his hands on his knees and then over at the photos on the wall, the dead tree silhouette and sunset photos, the cobweb misted with dew at dawn photos, as his wife drank it all in hungrily and then stood to be awarded second prize. I want you to imagine the brief economical smile they exchanged when she sat down again, holding her certificate. Her landscape photo on display, carefully mounted on card, enlarged at the chemist's in town, budgeted for, cautiously admired. The judge announced the winning photo, a massive sunset shot, the colours juiced with Photoshop, Someone else stood for that applause and that check. Then the judge added in passing that there'd been another photo she'd admired, which would have been a winner, except its theme was not images of rural life as specified in the competition rules. And she held up a picture of the woman's 2 children, gazing transfixed out of a window, the light pouring in, their faces upturned with wonder. And the woman stood again and politely collected this photograph, tucked it with the certificate on her lap, saying nothing. Later, as her husband checked his watch and spoke softly to his kids, a hand on his daughter's fair head, I told her how much I loved the picture and what a wonderful photographer I thought she was. And she smiled and looked at her photo. You know, she said, it didn't break the rules. This was the first moment my children ever saw rain. They left then, back to their car, to the long drive home, to the big bone-dry expanse of land beyond salvaging, with the second prize certificate and so few words between them. No speaking up, no protest or complaint, no claim of being wronged or misrepresented. But I think even now about how the light streamed onto her children's rapt faces, the tired love in her husband's hand, and her running to find her camera and frame it, the smell of the rain-marked dust, rare, momentary joy. They left, and all this passed into silence, unremarked and unacknowledged. That's why I'm telling you now. This poem always makes me cry as well.
Yeah, goodness.
Yeah.
Well, you know, reading brings joy and it also brings the realization of life. We're okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, swings, roundabouts, lightness, darkness. So Kate Kennedy is a genius.
She is, and I just repeat that last line about it would all pass into silence, unremarked and unacknowledged. That's why I'm telling you now. This is sort of where it reminds me of the Alice Bishop story, this idea that if we don't capture those tiny, still but important moments, they do kind of get lost to history, and it's our artists that are busy capturing and representing those for us, and somehow just making us feel better when we share them. So even though both those pieces tear us up at different times, it's sort of a good tears. It makes me feel less alone, really.
Well, you're not alone. You got me.
I've got you.
Yeah.
You've got me.
And we also have the narrator of the poem, and who is it?
The narrator, who's the narrator? Yeah. So we don't know. The narrator is someone who has observed this photography competition.
Yeah.
Someone who lives in the country and has a reason to be at a local photography award, but we don't really know any more than that. But it's someone who's decided to record this rather beautiful moment. And again, it's a moment so the drought's happened, but the drought has passed. There's been rain. So a bit like the Alice Bishop piece, we know that these disasters pass. So there is a sense of them ending, which I think is nice and reassuring. And there is that moment of reflection and passing on the observation, something that they've taken from that time.
I like the humanity in both pieces. You've got this kind of destructive natural event that has forever changed the landscape, but the pieces are about the people and the very human experience of, you know, you started by saying these pieces might be about disaster, but they're also about resilience. And I think focusing on the people and their experiences of disaster really, there's strength in that. There's an incredible compassion and connectivity. That's like a marketing buzzword. That's not what I mean.
Connectedness?
Yeah, that's a much better good word for what I'm talking about. Thank you for having it ready for me. That shared experience and that connectedness between us as readers and these characters, but also in Kate Kennedy's use of a narrator who simply must report back what they've seen. I'm going to say what she's seen because I imagine the narrator as
the author.
Yeah. Yes,
me too.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you think you would have been able to keep quiet if that was you in the photography competition and you followed all the rules and you had the best photo and you still didn't win? I don't think I would have been as humble and patient as the character in that poem. I think I would have had to say something, even if it was just a little grumble under my breath.
But I already got second prize. So I think I would have felt a little bit like I have been rewarded for my brilliant photography, and there's a technicality, and isn't there always a rule that just sucks sometimes? But I think I would have not said anything.
Oh, you're much more patient and humble than I am, because I think I really would have shaken my fist at that.
I don't know if people who've met me before would describe me as patient and humble, but I'm very grateful to you for using those words about me. I don't know. I guess, yeah, I probably would have, but I don't like breaking rules. Do you break rules? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with breaking rules, especially if I think the rules are meaningless, bureaucratic, or just annoying, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah. But I love that the characters in this poem, it just wouldn't even occur to them to rant and rail against the situation that they're in. And again, I guess that probably speaks back to this idea of resilience, is knowing which battles to fight,
Yeah.
where to save your energy.
Right.
They've got to go back and, do all the work on the farm. So what's the point of, getting upset about this competition?
Mm. But you also can't rage against a drought. I mean, you can, but unsuccessfully, I would argue. And so perhaps they're not rages in that sense.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's why the narrator has to bear witness to this moment, otherwise it passes without any reflection.
Do you think the narrator has a little bit of rage on behalf of what she's witnessed?
Absolutely. She's like, OMG, did you see that? Let me tell you what just happened. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah. So I'm with the narrator, really.
Yeah.
I have a very similar feeling.
Oh, you know what? As a bystander, I reckon I would be tempted to step in. But if it was my own photo, I would probably feel less likely to be enraged. Yeah, that's why I need you with me, Lisa, so you can get enraged on my behalf and I can do it for you.
Yeah, I think it's important to have people who can get enraged on our behalves. I think that's something to bear in mind. You can't always summon the correct amount of rage on your own behalf.
Yeah.
Another little similarity that I wanted to point out was the way the visual images soothed the people in the pieces that I read. So the Google Maps for the Alice Bishop story, and the idea of going and taking those photos for the woman in the poem. This idea that those photographs, they really meant something to her, and the images on Google Maps meant something to Alice's character. And I think there's something about images and very powerful about stories that has this capacity in these times of disaster to offer us this comfort and this solace. And yeah, there's something very particular that we get from them that we maybe don't get anywhere else.
Yeah, well, that's, as you said earlier, the power of art, the power of the written word, the power of reading, is that we have that ability to kind of, it's a bit like getting under a crochet blanket.
Yeah.
Right? You're
just
like, I'll take those words and I'm going to wrap, excuse me, and, very
Wrap your microphone around them.
Yeah, very unaccustomed to this setup, but we got the right vibe. Just kind of wrap yourself in words. At a time when people are confused and looking for meaning and looking for connection or connectivity. I don't know. We could be looking for connectivity. I'm just when I say connectivity, I'm imagining like women in gorgeous frocks in black and white, like unplugging and replugging. I'll put you through now, Mr. Jones.
Oh, those big switchboard
Robinson. Yes.
Type kind of environments where the switchboard was about the size of a room.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. When I was at university studying broadcasting, we had a patch bay with a lot of those kind of, and so we would be setting up to record a live band or whatever, but I would always imagine I was patching phone calls through. It was kind of a really nice, anyway, sorry. That's a segue. We have a few comments that I'd like to read you, Lisa.
Oh, I'd love to hear those.
One of them says, Lisa, you're the best. Chuck out the rest. So that's good. That's one for you. Another one says, how wonderful to be able to enjoy Story Lounge in my own lounge room. Another says, great choice of story and poem. Another one says, love it, ladies. That's you and me. We're ladies. Someone else has beautifully said, what a peaceful environment to click into. And I am happy that we can provide a bit of peace.
Our word blankets.
Our word blankets. And then there's another one that says, I would have been quiet at the event, but rant the whole drive home.
That...
Right? I love that so much because the narrator tells us what happens in the car on the way home and they don't rant and rave. And so we've got that insight into the fact that it wasn't a silent simmer that they were then able to let overflow, but that they took whatever their feelings were about it and kept a lid on it. And our friend in the comments has said, I would not have been able to do that. And I reckon realistically that probably would have been what I had done too. Said nothing at the time, been very quiet and accepting of the rules, and then got in the car. What? And then have a rant. I think our commenter and I are quite similar in that way. What about you, Lisa?
I think that's actually a really good point. I like to think in the moment that I might have spoken up, but I think it's actually much more likely that I would have complained to whoever would listen afterwards. And perhaps would still be complaining about it to this day, potentially. But I think that's a really nice point that we often wish that we'd said something in the moment, especially if it's an injustice or something like that. But usually there is a bit of a delay and we can be very polite and very sort of not wanting to rock the boat and not wanting to upset things. But given that opportunity and a little bit of time, we can build up the requisite rage and outrage. Especially if we get a sympathetic listener or just even a captive audience, someone stuck in the car with you.
Yeah.
I think there's a whole nother poem in that. The rant on the ride home.
Yeah.
If I was a poet, I would sit down and write that poem right now.
Could you write it anyway?
No.
All right. What if we tried to write it together?
No.
Not live. I mean.
Oh, thank you. You just made me break out into a sweat.
Yeah, no.
I thought we were segueing to a very different show just then.
We are segueing, however, into the scripted part of the end part of our Story Lounge program.
That's the bit where I say, don't forget, City of Melbourne Libraries has a great range of ebooks and audio books, including some of Cate Kennedy's books. Got Kate's memoir, her novel, and 2 short story collections.
That is exactly the segue I wanted, Lisa. Thank you. If you're watching and you're a member of the City of Melbourne Libraries, you can head to our website, www.melbournelibraryservice.com. Head to our ebooks and e-collections page and get amongst that collection. Download, listen immediately. If you're not a member of the library, you can join up and you will have access to all of our e-collections for free and quite quickly. There are more library videos like this one, unlike this one. I mean, I don't mean unlike, I mean different to this one. Yeah, there's no editing, so this is just happening. So for more library videos, similar and otherwise, how's that edit? Stay in our YouTube channel, click around and grab some other entertainment for your day. Thank you so much for watching our Story Lounge program with Lisa and Natalie. Enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.